If you're a fan of epic novels and you have not read this book, go to your local library right now or go on Amazon and get this book. I recently read The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, and the reason I'm not holding a physical copy is because I lent my copy to my sister, who I'm pretty sure will never read it. And then I watched the 2010 miniseries, The Pillars of the Earth, that aired on Starz, so we will compare the two, see what I liked about both, and see how they differ. Okay, so first, the book, The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Follett? I don't know. Anyway, it was first published in 1989. It is broken up into 6 different parts and spans about 40 years. It's also about 1,000 pages long. It is easily the longest novel I have ever read, and it might be my favorite novel that I've ever read. My wife actually recommended this book to me. She read it back in college and told me I should read it, and she said it's amazing, and I asked her what it's about, and she said it's about architecture. And I was like, The book follows the building of a cathedral in the fictional town of Kingsbridge, England, back in the 12th century. That was a period in England known as the Anarchy. There was a civil war going on, and the book does a really great job of taking historical events like the sinking of the White Ship in the year 1120, in which the son of King Henry was on board and died. And it takes events like that and it puts fictional characters into this world, and there's fictional things going on. At the same time, there are factual historical events going on, and it's really fascinating. By the way, we will be getting into possibly some minor spoilers, so if you haven't read the book or seen the miniseries, go read the book, go watch the miniseries, then come back and watch this video. This book has everything. It's got action. There are battles, medieval battles. It's got love. There's romance. It's got political intrigue and backstabbing. It's got architecture, for sure. You learn a lot about architecture. The characters. The characters in this novel are some of the best, most well-developed, interesting, fully rounded characters in any book I've ever read. Let's start with the character of Tom the Builder. He's one of the first main characters that you meet in the book, and he is extremely likable. He is humble yet confident. He is fearful at times, but he's determined to protect his family. He is God-fearing, and you can tell that at his core, he has a great heart. Next is the character of Pryor Phillip. He is a monk who is also extremely likable. He is kind-hearted, but at the same time, he's also very dogmatic in his religion and stern. And he makes a decision later on in the book that really affects 2 other beloved characters in a bad way. And you just want to grab him and shake him and be like, what are you doing? This is not the right decision. But he is set in his ways because of his religion, so you understand where he's coming from. And he's a complicated character. But he does a lot of other things throughout the book that just endear you to him, and you know that he's got a good heart as well. The other 2 main characters on the good side, I would say, are Ileana and Jack. And Ileana, I hope I'm saying that name right, she might be my favorite character in the whole novel. She's the main female character, and something traumatic and awful happens to her at the very beginning of her introduction and character development. And she goes from having everything to then having nothing, and she is broken, but she's not beaten. And she takes it upon herself to lift up herself and her younger brother, Richard. And she leads them on a path to restoring their family's glory. And it's an incredible character arc to behold, and she's just a badass, and she's incredibly strong-willed and very smart, and is able to come up with a business plan that enables them to become wealthy again. And I just love the character of Ileana. And then there's Jack, and Jack is also a great character, and that's the love interest of Ileana. And he also has a lot more to do in the novel than just being Ileana's love interest, and he becomes extremely important in the second half of the book. But let's now talk about the villains of this novel, because that, I think, is actually the strength of this novel, because the villains are so good, for lack of a better word, that they make this novel. They make you hate them so much that it makes you want to root for the good guys all that more. Villain number 1 is Bishop Walleran, or Walleran. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that one right either. But he is a power-hungry bishop, a high-ranking religious official who works his way up through the ranks, and he's just a snake. And then there is William. William Hamley is the best villain in any novel I have ever read. He is evil. You end up hating this character with a burning passion. He does something about halfway or so through the book, and it involves a baby. And I remember reading this part of the book, and my jaw dropped because I couldn't believe what I was reading, that a character in a book, you hate him already by this point. He's done some pretty awful things. And then there's this one scene, like again involving this baby. And I just couldn't believe it. Like I said, my jaw dropped, and audibly I was like, oh my God, what won't this guy do? Oh, I hated him so much. But that's what I love about this book so much. It takes you on such an epic journey, a roller coaster ride, a whirlwind of emotions. I won't say that I never cry, because there are sometimes in movies especially where I will tear up, but I have never cried while reading a book, at least as far as I can remember, except for this one. There is a scene early on in this book. Something happens with Tom the Builder and his family in the first chapter or so, and it is so well written and so freaking sad that I was sitting on an airplane, I think, reading it, and my eyes teared up. And, you know, this book, it just does that to you. Just when everything seems like it's going okay and everything's going to be good, something happens that turns everything upside down, and all of a sudden you're back to being fearful and worrying about what's going to happen to these characters next. Another thing I really liked about this book is how it brings you into its setting and gives a realistic depiction of what it was like to live back in medieval times. Just the brutality of it, and just how difficult it was for characters to, say, just find food on a daily basis. Okay, so enough about the book. Let's talk about the 2010 miniseries that aired on Starz. It stars Ian McShane, Rufus Sewell, Eddie Redmayne, Haley Atwell, Donald Sutherland, Sam Claflin, and a host of other actors, and it had a budget of $40 million, and it was nominated for 3 Golden Globes, so you can tell that they put a lot of effort into this, which I appreciate. This miniseries is 8 episodes long, about 8 hours or so, and I think it really would have benefited from being about 10 hours long or 10 episodes. It just felt a little rushed to me, especially that first episode was pretty fast-paced, and there's a lot of characters that you're introduced to, and I think it just would have benefited from going a little slower to give you a little more time to get to know these characters and ease your way into the story and plotline. Let's talk about the cast. Very impressive, like I said. Ian McShane as Bishop Walleran. He is almost perfectly cast. He's a little too old maybe, but he is very good. And Haley Atwell, my girl, my crush, and Eddie Redmayne are perfectly cast as Ileana and Jack. Then you've got Rufus Sewell, plays Tom the Builder, who I love Rufus Sewell. I think he's a terrific actor, but I just pictured Tom as a lot taller than Rufus Sewell. Other than that, though, I think he did very well as Tom. Then we get to David Oakes as William Hamley. And in my opinion, this is the biggest flaw in the miniseries. Because like I said, in my opinion, the biggest strength in the novel is the villains. And William Hamley in the book is this angry, intimidating, scary character who you never know when he'll just flip a switch and explode and do something insane. And David Oakes in the miniseries just plays him as this whiny, sniveling little mama's boy who's not scary at all. And I think that really hurts the miniseries. He also has an incestuous relationship with his mother, which is not in the book. And that leads us to where the miniseries and the book differ, because there are quite a few differences. One scene that sticks out to me is the scene in which Jack, which is Eddie Redmayne's character, and Walter, who is William's right-hand guy, they duel in this quarry for the rights to the quarry. And it's kind of a silly little fight scene, and that's not in the book at all. In the book, everything eventually ties back to the sinking of that white ship that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. And the miniseries does this thing where it takes some characters and puts them on that ship that were never there in the book. And that kind of changes the ending quite significantly. There's also a dramatic death of a main character at the end of the miniseries that never happens in the book. It takes place at the top of the cathedral. You'll know what I mean if you've read the book and seen the miniseries. I also don't think this miniseries really takes advantage of the fact that it is on Starz and not on basic cable. It doesn't really earn that R rating, if you will, because the book is brutal. There is some really intense, bloody battle scenes, and I feel like the miniseries, like I said, didn't really take advantage of that. It's not really that gruesome or bloody, and it could have been. There is a brutal rape scene in the miniseries, but I just feel like the miniseries could have been a lot more raw and really gone for it, like Game of Thrones style, and it just didn't. Overall, I did enjoy the miniseries. The acting was very good. Hayley Atwell crushed it in this. She was amazing as Ileana. She did get a Golden Globe nomination for her acting, deservedly so. It was a noble attempt. It just wasn't quite as epic as the book. So I will have to say, I mean, obviously, hey, it's maybe my favorite novel of all time, way better than the miniseries. All right, there you have it. If you have read this book or seen this miniseries, comment below. Let me know what you thought of them. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe, click the bell. See you later.